Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about the SEC and what they're doing going forward. They are not the best team in the conference in the country, but absolutely could be right back there next year. Could be right back there for quite some time next year. But we'll definitely talk about that more as the offseason go on. Anthony did have a question here, or did have a comment right here about the bowl games that we were talking about, and it's definitely true. Certain of those games are a little bit more SEC leaning in a lot of different ways. I will say, I was at that Peach Bowl a couple of days ago. I think ASU fans won that day. I think they probably won that margin, whether it was 55-45, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I do think ASU fans might have won it over Texas fans. So maybe there's not quite that big advantage. It's definitely something to discuss, though. Those Southern games definitely do give a little bit more credence to the SEC teams in them. We'll have to definitely kind of get into that, and maybe that's another reason to possibly lean into home games going forward in that second round. But we'll obviously talk about that going forward, but we got to talk about the FCS Championship. We have a championship going on tonight, and we definitely got to give it the love that it deserves because it has the only undefeated team left in Division I football in it, Montana State. They've played incredible football this year, and it's got NDSU, and if you know anything about FCS football, it's probably North Dakota State, if I'm being totally honest. They have dominated this sport for so long. They have been one of the most dominating forces in college sports for the last decade and a half, really. They've been absolutely dominant and have been incredibly fun to watch. They've taken a little bit of step back the last couple of years, and Montana State has really filled that void. They've been absolutely dominating the sport, especially this year, have been absolutely incredible. Looking for a 16-0 finish, their first title since 1984. They did lose in 2021 to this very team, to North Dakota State. So a little bit of payback might be in order. North Dakota State looking for their first title since that 2021 game, and they're 10th in the last 14. They would absolutely dominate the sport. They would get 10 in 14 years. Just absurd in every sense of the word, regardless of what level you're playing on. That is absolutely insane. Incredible coaches have walked through there, and they've changed coaches throughout that time. They're right back where they have become accustomed to being, at the very top of the sport. Cam Miller is the quarterback you're going to want to watch for North Dakota State. He was the one that won. Honestly, North Dakota State might be better than what Alabama is. They might be Alabama times 2 at the FCS level, if I'm being totally honest. The way they've dominated the last 15 years is absolutely ridiculous. But if you were to draw a comparison, it absolutely would be those two. North Dakota State to Alabama, but North Dakota State dominates them even more than Alabama dominated the FBS level. But Cam Miller is the quarterback for NDSU. He was the one that won the title the last time around when they played Montana State in 2021. Really talented player. Has played a ton of good football, played some really good football in that championship game. And then you got touchdown Tommy Mellott on the other side, the Walter Payton Award winner, kind of the FCS Heisman, at least offensive Heisman, but really the Heisman. He's definitely a very talented player. Has had an incredible year, almost 1,000 yards rushing. The kid is absolutely ridiculous, and both these quarterbacks are really ridiculous. As good as these quarterbacks are, the running backs are downright special as well. You got Barika Kapinu, the running back for NDSU, along with Shamar Brown, both remarkable players, one over 1,000 yards, one just over 700. You have Scott Trey Humphrey, very talented, 1,300-yard rusher. Adam Jones for Montana State as well, 1,100-yard rusher, and he's a freshman. So there's a ton of talent in the backfields of both these teams. There's going to be a ton of run game in the backfield of both these teams. So the question becomes, can there be playmakers on the outside? Is there a way to get a little bit of pass game involved in this, and who would have the advantage there? It's pretty aggressively North Dakota State, and it's pretty aggressively because of one guy. Bryce Lance is an absolute monster on the outside for NDSU. 6 catches, 125 yards in the 3 scores, including the game-winning score in the semifinal game against South Dakota State. He's a special player. He's an NFL talent on the outside at wide receiver, and he's absolutely someone that can give them a little bit of advantage on the outside over Montana State. So that's definitely something to think about. NDSU has a little bit more advantage throwing the ball around the field, at least in terms of talent on the outside. Montana State definitely has a little bit of advantage running the ball. They have a duo of 1,000-yard runners. Tommy Mellott's near 900 yards, so they definitely have the factor on the ground. North Dakota State might have a little bit more ability to push the ball down the field in the air. And then the question becomes, which defense is more equipped to slow it down? Because these are two elite offenses, top 3 in scoring offense in the country. They're top 10 in scoring defense, so they can definitely get after you a little bit. 37 sacks for both these teams, absolutely even on the year. You got to disrupt these quarterbacks. One way or the other, they have to get after these guys, make sure Tommy Mellott and Cam Miller can't create with their legs, and make sure you can't get the ball to Bryce Lance. If Bryce Lance can take over this game for North Dakota State, he's one of the best. Him and Tommy Mellott are probably the best players on the field. Bryce Lance, we'll get to that here in a second. Bryce Lance is absolutely someone that can take over this game. But you got to have playmakers out there. You got to have that guy that'll make that one play throughout the game. It could be Darius Gevens for NDSU, 2 INTs on the year, very talented guy on the back end, flies around. And then for Montana State, the guys on the back end, Andrew Powdrell and John Johnson, very talented players. Both guys that can make some big-time days. Powdrell has 7 pass breakups on the year. John Johnson has multiple picks this year. Very, very talented players on the back end for both these defenses. So this is what a national championship should be. These are the 2 best teams in the FCS level. It is good on good all over the place. There is not a place that you're going to find a massive margin one way or the other for these teams. They both do a really good job of taking care of the football. They both do a really good job of taking away the football. They both do a great job of running the football and passing the football. They do a great job of defending both those things. They're a top 25 in just about every category you can possibly find in the FCS. It's going to be awesome to watch these 2 teams face off. So if you were thinking about sitting this one out, if you were thinking about not watching this one, I encourage you to watch this one. I think when we talk about college football today, I think we all understand that so much of it is being pushed toward the FBS and the Power 4 and really the Power 2. When you talk about the SEC and the Big Ten, giving a little bit of love to these guys and these guys that are very, very talented is definitely a way to keep this sport alive. It's definitely a way to keep this sport the way that we like it, the way that we want it, which is giving respect to every inch of this sport. And this is obviously a huge, huge day for them. Would love to have a lot of people tuning into this one and kind of prove a little bit of a point that the FCS is still very, very much alive. But let's get some players to watch, and I'm just going to keep talking about Bryce Lance. He is downright special, guys. He is a difference maker in every sense of the word. He is Trey Lance's brother, if anyone was wondering throughout this time. He is Trey Lance's brother, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Elite wide receiver in every sense of the word. Very long, can make all the catches in the world, is a very, very polished route runner for how big and strong he is, can definitely run the routes that you need him to run, is nearing 1,000 yards on this year. Could very well break that tonight. In fact, I'd probably bet on him breaking that tonight, if I'm being totally honest with you. Very talented guy and might just be the most outright talented player on the field. Tommy Mellott might be right behind him, although it's very, very close between these 2. Then you got Logan Kopp, the leading tackler for the NDSU defense. In the middle of that defense, monster, an absolute beast. 3 sacks on the year, 3 INTs on the year. Very talented, very rangy guy, and he's going to have his hands full. He's going to have to run down Tommy Mellott a lot in this game, and then he's going to have to fill gaps incredibly well for Scott Trey Humphrey and Adam Jones, 2 guys that can really make you pay if you do not fill that gap the right way. Then we got Taco Dowler, a guy that is on the outside from Montana State. We didn't talk too much about the wide receivers from Montana State. They do have playmakers. 94 yards and a touchdown against South Dakota. He's got to make plays. When you talk about a team that is going to run the ball so aggressively, when you talk about a defense that knows you're going to run the ball so aggressively, you sometimes just need that one pass play. And this could very well be the guy that's on the receiving end of it. Going to be a huge player, been great all year. Might just need his best game of his life in tonight's game. And then you got Bodie Grebe. He has 7.5 sacks on the year off the edge for Montana State. If you don't get after Cam Miller, he can absolutely make you pay. He can make all the throws that he's going to need to make, and he'll probably go to number 5 Bryce Lance quite a bit on those throws. So you got to get after him. You got to rattle him a little bit, make sure that they don't feel comfortable throwing those deep passes, because that's the way this game could change on a dime. If they can get after him very early, if they can make sure Cam Miller is not comfortable, you probably avoid that big-time play that NDSU is more than capable of making. And then we got to talk about keys to the game. The run game battle in this one is going to be downright special. Montana State averages over 300 yards a game, 3rd in the FCS in rush yards, and then NDSU's down at 20 with 192. Not a slouch by any means. Now, both defenses are absolutely elite at stopping the run, where you have Montana State allowing only 115 per game, NDSU only 119 per game. So it's good on good. It's as good as you could possibly want. Now, Montana State probably has the advantage when you talk about rushing offense, but the rushing defenses are very, very even, and it's going to be an absolute battle, one way or the other, who can get push on that offensive line. Then, turnover margin is a big-time part of this. NDSU, top team in the FCS when it comes to turnover margin, plus 19 on the season. 5 other teams, or more than... They are 5 better in that category than anyone else at the FCS level. The next best is plus 14. Then you do have Montana State down at plus 8. Could that be the difference? Could they possibly find a little bit of an opening there where NDSU gets that one pick over Tommy Mellott, and that changes this game? And then the quarterback duel is going to be special. You will find very, very few quarterback duels in college football that are quite as good as this one, where Tommy Mellott, absolutely elite in every sense of the word. He's made all the plays in the world, was the FCS Heisman, is just elite in every sense. And then Cam Miller, very experienced player, has won a national championship already, will not be fazed by this moment, and he can make plenty of plays. No doubt about that. Both of them have over 3,500 total yards, over 40 touchdowns on the year. Dual threat guys that can make every single play in the book, and will be so much fun to watch unfold in this game. I'm going to pick Montana State. I got to be totally honest with you. I liked a lot of the things I was seeing from North Dakota State as I was getting ready for this game. I'm going to pick the guy that won the FCS Heisman. I'm going to pick Tommy Mellott to get a little bit of revenge for that team. He played a couple of snaps in that first game back in 2021. I think he's going to get a little bit of revenge in this one. I think he gets the win. I think Montana State finishes their perfect season 16-0. I think they win the FCS Championship. But moving forward from that, going to be an incredible game tonight. Definitely tune in for that one. But let's get into a little bit of a bowl wrap-up here. A couple of games that happened this last week to kind of put an end to bowl season. And we'll talk about Texas State, North Texas to start this thing off. Texas State got the win. North Texas had the star. There's no doubt about that. Drew Mestemaker was a huge star in this game. Made his first start since the 9th grade. It was a JVB team. He went to a huge football powerhouse in Texas called Vandegrift High School. Really, really good team. And definitely one where it's not crazy that he did not start on that team, but was remarkable in this game. Went for 448 total touchdowns, 3 scores in this one, including a rushing touchdown that made me think that they might be able to come back in this game. But for Texas State, Lincoln Park tore up this game. 21 carries, 143 yards, 2 scores. Ended up having to put away with a 73-yard touchdown run. Really good stuff from this Texas State team. Cannot wait to see what G.J. Kinney can do in 2025. I think there's a team that could very well be that Group of 5 CFP representative. Then you got Minnesota, Virginia Tech. This one was a little bit monotonous at different times. Definitely didn't give us the scoring and the craziness that we'd wanted, but with a lot of the different extenuating circumstances, especially on the Virginia Tech side, makes a little bit of sense here. But Minnesota got the win. PJ Fleck got the Mayo bath in front of Flava Flav. Very, very weird, very cool at the end of the day. Darius Taylor tore up the day, 20 carries, 113 yards, and a score in this one. Minnesota is a team I'm going to be watching very closely throughout this offseason. Some changes are coming, no doubt about it, but Darius Taylor, some portal guys they're bringing in, including Malachi Coleman on the outside, could be a very fun team in 2025. And then VT, I'm a little bit worried about a lot of the things that have happened in the portal for them. We'll talk about them in a little bit more detail throughout the offseason, but at the end of the day, a little bit worried about what the Hokies could have in 2025. And then you got Buffalo. They finished this one off in good fashion and kind of how I expected this one to unfold. Without Caden Salter, that Liberty offense was going to struggle, especially with the way that Red Murdoch and all those guys on the defense for Buffalo were playing. Absolute beast on the interior is Red Murdoch, along with Sean Dolock, but you have 13 tackles, a pick 6 in this one. Really, really good job. And Pete Lembo did an incredible job at Buffalo this year. It was in year 1, fourth time in program history that they've gotten to 9 wins. Really, really good stuff. They will be a MAC contender next year. If they can keep CJ Obaniah on that team, it's going to be a special group. And then for Liberty, they're going to bring in Ethan Basco from Coastal Carolina to be their quarterback. They'll be right back in the mix for the Conference USA. They're not going to be far down for long. I don't know if they'll be able to compete with Western Kentucky and some of those other teams, but definitely something that we'll unpack in time, and will be really interesting to see what this Liberty team is like in 2025. But was a remarkable bowl season. I think we can all agree. It was one of the best that we've had in quite some time. Hoping we can keep that energy going into 2025, and we'll do a little bit of full reaction to the bowl season probably sometime next week to give it a little bit more love than just going over the games very quickly, but we'll do that in time. Let's take our last break here, and when we come back, we got to talk about the portal. We got to talk about all the other news going on around the sport, because there's quite a bit of it, and we'll talk about it right after this, so stick with us.